A PE teacher tries to force me to run laps around a track despite me having severe asthma. When I refused, he started making racist comments about me, so I decided to get his sorry ass fired. Here's what happened. So, I'm a 16-year-old high school student, and I have severe asthma. It's something that I've had to deal with my whole life, and something that greatly affects my daily life. I have to carry my inhaler with me everywhere I go, and I have to be careful about the kind of physical activity I do. Running is especially difficult for me because it causes me to experience shortness of breath and chest tightness. On this particular day, our regular PE teacher was out, and we had a substitute teacher. He was a tall, balding man who looked like he didn't want to be there. He introduced himself and immediately announced that we'd be running laps around the track. I immediately felt uneasy. I knew that running would be difficult for me because of my asthma. I raised my hand and politely said, "Excuse me, Mr. Park, I have severe asthma and running is really hard for me." He looked at me with a grin and said, "Come on, it can't be that bad." And I was like, "Dude, I have severe asthma. It's not something to joke about. I could actually die." But he just laughed and said, "You're just being a dramatic fella." I was taken aback by his response and honestly thought he was just playing, but I came to realize he was being an insensitive prick. I tried to explain to him that my asthma was serious, that it's a chronic condition that affects my daily life, and that I have a medical note from my doctor stating that I should avoid strenuous exercise, as I almost died before from an asthmatic attack. But he didn't want to listen. He said, "Everyone has to run laps, it's part of the class. You're not special, young one." I felt like I was being bullied. I was getting more and more upset, and I couldn't hold back my anger. I said, "I'm not being dramatic. My asthma is serious, and it affects my ability to run. I'm not trying to be special, I'm just trying to be honest about my limitations so I don't die, you piece of shit." The teacher then made a racist comment. If I recall correctly, he was like, "Boy, don't lie to me. You can't have asthma. You got a big nose. You can simply just breathe through those massive airways." And I just snapped. I started swearing at him, calling him a racist piece of shit, and tried to mentally mess with him. I was so mad. I couldn't believe that this dude was not only making fun of my asthma, but also had the audacity to make a comment about my nose, something I'm deeply insecure about. He had the audacity to even say, "How dare you talk to me like that? I'm your teacher, and you will respect me." I was furious. I couldn't believe this guy was trying to silence me for standing up for myself. I said, "Respect is earned, and you've earned a lost salary. Just watch." He laughed and then said, "I don't have to listen to this nonsense. You're going to run those laps or face detention." I was so angry. I felt like my basic rights were being violated. I said, "You can't make me run. It's against my medical condition. And if you try to punish me for standing up for myself, I'll go to the principal and report you." He walked up to me and whispered, "Go ahead then. You can't do shit." I was so upset and frustrated. I just walked out of the class. I felt humiliated and disrespected. I went to the school counselor and explained what had happened. The counselor was sympathetic and assured me that she would talk to the principal about the incident. A day later, my parents came to the school to talk to the principal. They were furious about what had happened, and they wanted to make sure that something was done about it. They met with the principal and they advocated for me, supporting my decision not to run on the track. They demanded that the teacher be fired, but the principal refused, saying that the teacher had a good track record, and there wasn't enough evidence to support my claims. My parents were not happy with this response, and they threatened to report the incident to the Board of Education. The principal hesitated and eventually decided to escalate the issue. He conducted an investigation and gathered evidence from other students and teachers. A week later, the substitute teacher was fired from the school. I was relieved that something had been done about it, but I was also disappointed that it had taken so long. Weeks later, I came to know that the teacher had his teaching license suspended by the Board of Education under the reason of not being able to handle students with special needs and not providing an inclusive and safe environment for students with disabilities. Anyways, if you're reading this, Mr. Park, I hope your bald head is having a hard time finding a job. Yo, what the actual hell? This Karen of a PE teacher is ridiculous. Trying to make a kid with severe asthma run laps? And then to top it off, he makes racist comments about the student's nose? That's just cruel and unacceptable. I'm glad the students stood up for themselves and reported the incident. No one should have to deal with that kind of behavior from a teacher. Kudos to the student for speaking up and showing they won't tolerate being bullied and disrespected. And to the teacher, sorry not sorry, but you deserve to get your sorry ass fired. An entitled Karen mother demands I let her child have my insulin pen, and when I refuse, I get physically assaulted by her strong husband. So I get revenge. It ends really bad for them. So, a little backstory. I'm a 15-year-old student. I'm diabetic. I use an injection pen, and I have a job at a local cafe in town. Now, everyone in town is friends with my mom, whether through school, nursery, town council, you name it. She's friends with everyone. Because of this, my mom knows everything in town. But the downside is that she will sometimes tell everyone about what's happening at home, and this is kind of good because everyone in town knows that I'm diabetic, so they could help me if needed. This is also the reason I was able to get the job I have. The long version of how I got my job I can explain later if asked, but basically, if I eat, my blood sugar goes up, so it ensures that I won't try and sneak cakes and brownies from the cafe, as previous employees have. Now to the story. I was at work on a Saturday, and because it's the weekend, I work from opening time to closing time, and it was a pretty regular day with the same group of old ladies coming at about 11 for tea and cakes, and the same group of builders who had been coming in for the last week on their snack break. So altogether, a pretty normal day, with just a bit more of a tip than usual. In comes Karen, who is friends with my mom, along with an annoyed husband, their teenage daughter, and their 5-year-old son. Now, this was just before my lunch break, so I was about to just go into the break room to do all my diabetes stuff. All my diabetes stuff was in the front of my apron, so the insulin pen was poking out. This will be relevant later. And have my lunch when EM beckons me over from the door, so being the obedient worker bee that I am, I go over and talk. Karen goes like, "Aren't you supposed to take us to a table?" I guess if you want me to. Okay, well, you're supposed to, so yes. So I take her over to the nearest table and help them with getting their order sorted. I then proceed to go to the counter and get the cakes and brownies and whatnot that they ordered. That's when I hear the following conversation. She says to her son, "Honey, no, you can't draw with my lipstick." "But Mommy, I want to draw." Karen then sees my injection pen poking out the front of my apron, beckons me over again, and the following conversation ensues. "Can my son borrow your pen for a second so we can draw?" I'm slightly confused, so I say, I don't have a pen. Karen points to my injection pen. "That pen. Now." "Oh, this one. Yeah, I can't let your son have this because it's got my medicine in it. You should know this. You're friends with my mom." "I don't care about your stupid ducking diabetes. My son wants to draw, so stop being a selfish cunt and give me your pen." I was shocked at the rudeness of this woman. "Look, miss, I can't give him or you my pen due to health and safety concerns, and also he could die if I gave it to him. So, no." Some of my fellow employees are just coming in from the break room and the kitchen, and this is when shit hits the fan, because she proceeds to stand up to get her husband, who was in the toilet, so that he could deal with me. This guy was in his late 30s, probably weighed 3 times his wife, and was buff, like super buff. But I knew him from around town and assumed this dude wouldn't hurt me because he was pretty chill. "I just told my husband what's happening, and he's gonna get you." I'm not scared of a guy who's married to a fucking stick insect. Husband exits bathroom with his veins bulging and murder in his eyes. Boy, was I wrong about him not hurting me. Husband proceeds to storm up to me, pick me up by my neck, slam me into a wall, get right up in my face, and yell in a voice that made him sound like a lighthouse. "Why are you disrespecting my wife and making my son upset?" Struggling to breathe, "I'm trying to stop your son from potentially killing himself." Calmer than before, but still pretty mad. "You need to help the customer and make sure they are satisfied, are you not? So why in the name of Duck and Jesus Christ himself are you not tailoring to my wife and son?" "Look, sir, my medical condition could kill me, and this pen," gesturing to my insulin pen, "is one of the only things keeping me alive. If I give this to your son, he could stab himself and then would need to go to the hospital to stop his body from shutting down and dying." The husband then slaps me hard. I fall back and twist to stop myself from being hurt, but in the process, I drop my insulin pen and it smashes. Little bits of glass fall like snow, and then the smell of my medicine hits me. For those of you who don't have diabetes, insulin smells horrible. It's a combination of strong hospital chemicals and a cow turd. The smell makes me throw up all over the floor, and that's when finally my coworkers decide to call the police. The family stays behind because the parent thought they did nothing wrong. This all ends with police coming to the cafe, asking what happened, and asking if they could view the security tapes. They watched the tapes in shock at the fact that this man was okay with just beating a kid up because his wife said to. The parents were handcuffed and taken away. This happened about 3.5 to 4 months ago, and now the Karen and her husband are in court. Last I heard of it, they were facing a sentence of at least 5 years, paying to replace my medicine pen, and £250,000 in compensation money. Justice is a cake, best served with a nice cup of tea. OMG, can we talk about the craziness of this Karen lady in the OP story? Like, I get that her son wanted to draw with her lipstick, but asking a diabetic employee to give up their injection pen for it, that's just insane. And then to go off on them and call them a selfish cunt for not giving it up, that's just low. And then to involve her husband, who ends up physically assaulting the employee, that's just downright scary. Karen needs to learn some boundaries and respect for others' health and safety. And her husband needs to learn some anger management. Talk about a wild ride at work. Anyways, you should watch this video on screen where a Karen who had constipation felt her life-threatening emergency was more important than the OP's unexpected labor and the health of her unborn child.